Hello everybody, good morning or afternoon depending on where you're watching this. I wanted to jump on today and I've been asked a lot lately about anxiety and how to kind of combat anxiety while you're in the middle of having an anxiety attack, because it's hard to know what's going to cause your anxiety when you don't know all your triggers yet. So yes, the goal is to get into a preventative mindset and like know what's going to trigger you and know how to and know before you go into it. And so you have your techniques, your grounding skills and all that before you go into it, and also your boundaries, which help with your anxiety and stuff like that. But to really kind of eradicate this anxiety, you want to do skills that are going to like empower you while you're in the anxiety attack, that are going to bring you back to your center and move your focus and calm the waters in your mind, so that then you can reapproach the situation that you're in and appropriately handle it. So what I learned was grounding techniques for that I learned in the hospital actually, which really helped me because I was going through a lot. It was really overwhelming. I was just sober for the first time too, so I had to feel all of this. And their biggest technique was this method of you stop yourself. You feel the anxiety attack coming on. You're almost like hyperventilating, can't breathe, and you want to shut that part of your mind off, and you want to focus on your feet first. Feel the weight of your feet on the ground. Now, with that feeling of the weight of your feet on the ground, you're putting all of your mental power into your feet on the ground. You feel gravity. You feel how you're attached to the earth, how you are safe in that zone, that the earth will take care of you. You're not going to die. It feels like that, but you're not. So you feel the weight of your feet on the ground, and you center yourself with that. And then the next thing you want to do is incorporate other senses, like name 5 smells you can smell. Like right now, I smell flowers, I smell grass, I smell leaves, and then this brings me to springtime. And now I'm thinking about springtime, and I'm thinking about good weather, and I'm thinking about summertime, and I'm thinking good thoughts. Another thing is you want maybe count things, like count the amount of windows in a room. You know, the point is you want to take yourself from the hyperventilation or the overwhelming feeling or the rumination. You want to take yourself from that and bring yourself back to things that are stable and tangible and things that are constant. So it reminds you that this world is here. This is your true center space, your mindfulness. Your mindfulness is the key to it all. You bring yourself back to the stability around you, and that will in turn replicate the stability inside of you. Another couple cool tricks I do is I carry around these 2 pieces of hematite. They're magnetic hematite. And when I start to feel the anxiety rising, I pull these out of my pocket and I pull them apart and I snap them back together. So now, whatever the person's talking about, whatever it is that's triggering me, let's say I have to be in that situation, I'm focusing on the hematite. I'm not focusing on how it's making me feel at the moment, because you don't want to get into that yet. Maybe you're not in a safe space for that. You just want to focus on the hematite. Another thing I like to do is, like, personally, is now I think of the properties of hematite. I remember that this is the magnetic core of the earth. That's what my feet are weighted to. That is my safety net. That's my zone, you know? So I also do that with other crystals. Like, I'll keep them in my pocket and I'll be like, okay, anxiety's coming on. Let's focus on this lepidolite. How does it feel? The texture? What's it look like? What the sparkles inside of it? The colors? What does the colors make you think of? All of that. You're redirecting your brain into a safe space, into a safe zone. I also carry around this little carving of this kitty, because cats are like my happy space, and I can't bring a cat everywhere. So I bring this little carving of a kitty who is made out of jade, which is a heart chakra stone, and it reminds me about my love for myself. So when I start to feel this anxiety that someone else or this outward thing is causing me, I pick up this cat and it reminds me of me, my truth, and what I stand for and what I'm allowing to happen for me. So bring myself to the kitty. I also bring myself to this crystal, because this was the first crystal I was ever drawn to. So it brings me back to what's important to me, my goals, my my future, you know, what I learned from this crystal, you know, what I learned, how it's broken before and it regrew, which is so much like myself, that I'm constantly healing and I'm constantly growing, and that's this crystal. So in the panic attack, sometimes we can beat ourselves up when we're feeling it. We're like, oh my God, now I'm gonna be doing this, and we kind of talk bad about ourselves, you know what I mean? So instead, pick this up, remind yourself that this anxiety has nothing to do with you. It's the causation of what's going on around you, for sure, but remind yourself of what is important, what that you're still growing, and you're allowed to have these kinds of attacks. These things are going to happen, you know. The anxiety is there for a reason. And when I found out that when I secluded myself and isolated myself, I had found out that the majority of my anxiety was because of situations that I didn't want to be in, which makes a lot of sense. And when we realize that we can choose those situations, in a sense, like maybe it's our higher power telling us that that situation's not good for us. Like, for instance, I had such crippling anxiety about my last job that I could never get there on time. I would wake up at 4 in the morning and still not make it there by 7, because I couldn't. I was just overthinking it. I was thinking about the people when I get there, how mean they are to me, how dysfunctional the situation was, and I kept forcing myself to go because it was a good paycheck and I wanted to live up to that standard, that expectation. But literally, I dropped that job, and the anxiety, like a big portion of it, just dwindled away. So listen to these cues too. I mean, during the panic attack, the key is just to calm down. So then you use those tools. You use your senses. You want to accommodate like all your senses, and fill them up with what's stable and what's reality, and not what's your rumination. But going forward in that, anything you start to feel triggered about, you want to sit with it and see why. Why is it triggering me? What is it about that situation? You know, like I, for instance, had a lot of issues with going food shopping because in my past, I was spending all my money on drugs and I couldn't get any food, you know. So you'd be in the line and you're looking at your stash of food and you're counting your money, and you're noticing you're gonna have to put half of it back, and then my heart starts going, and the lady jumps on the customers, we're closing in 10 minutes, and like I would lose it. I would just leave. I wouldn't deal with it. I wouldn't food shop. So now I'm no longer doing those things. I'm changing my life around, but I still get anxiety when I go food shopping because it's linked to that memory. But if I remind myself why it's linked to something else, it's not the current situation, I start to calm down again. Yeah, that's a big one, because like we just went food shopping the other day, and I started to feel it rise, and I was like, what? And then I thought about it, and I was like, right, because you're linking it to this past anxiety that you used to have, and it's still ingrained in there. Repetition of routine is what really gets us to retrain our brain. So the more we face things like that too, knowing that it was the past and it's not now, and then do it anyway, you'll see the anxiety start to just fall off. But you don't want to force yourself when you're in an unstable situation with yourself. Like if your mind is unstable, if your emotions are unstable, just heal. Stay home, heal yourself, see what else you need. Don't beat yourself up about it either. That was something that I did for so long, and it made the anxiety so much worse. If somebody stood up, because we were leaving, and they stood up and they grabbed their keys, but I wasn't ready yet because I had to pack a million things, because like I always had my stuff. Like thank goodness I'm like down to just carrying these things around now, but it used to be a backpack of stuff just in case I had anxiety. I would have these tools, these necessary tools to calm me down in the moment. So if someone grabbed their keys and they were like ready to stand up, I had to start all over again, you know. And it was crippling, literally crippling. I couldn't do anything by myself. I couldn't get anything done. I stayed in the house all the time. But the more I slowly did these grounding skills and then stepped outside of my comfort zone, I was able to do these things more easily. It's all about practice. And let's say, here's a situation, rent was due, I had no rent, you know, like that is anxiety. I feel that. So, of course, you're gonna be freaking out about it. But what I learned is if you sit with it and you realize, okay, this is, you do your grounding skills first. You bring yourself back to the current moment, that you are safe, that you are okay, nothing's happening yet, you know, and you take it in strides. Like I did end up getting evicted, I did, but it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. I was holding on to something that I thought was what I needed, and it really wasn't. It's all about that letting go, and that's what our anxiety is really there to show us. But in the moment, you can feel like you're dying. So you have to do these techniques to calm yourself down, stay mindful in the moment, trust the process, and just listen to yourself, like trust yourself. Trust yourself that your anxiety and your physical, outwardly things that are happening to you are signs that you need to listen to something on the inside. And if we can't get there because of the snowball rolling down the hill in your mind that's just collecting and collecting, you gotta stop, feel the weight of your feet on the floor, your connection to the earth, the connection that you have to something that is always flourishing. It's got a natural cycle. It takes care of itself, and you take care of yourself too. But we always forget that. We forget that we can handle it, that we are biologically designed for every experience we go through, because those experiences are the fabric, the pieces of fabric that make your timeline quilt. The giant quilt that is you, your life, is based off of these experiences. So almost, it's hard to in the moment, but almost look at it like it's a positive thing. It is positive. Your body is trying to tell you something that you're ignoring, but we don't know all those things at first. So we gotta ground, we gotta get back to it. We gotta still the lake in our mind so that we can reflect how lakes do when they're still, but yet they're always moving with a current river running through them. So calm your mind, stay still, but keep moving, but just slow, little baby steps. Don't ever push yourself too much, and especially according to expectations. People who put expectations on you, that's their fault. That's their own letdown expectation they shouldn't have had. So it has nothing to do with you. You focus on you, focus on calming yourself with these skills, carry around little mementos that remind you of who you truly are, because like that was a big one for me, especially when I was around. I mean, we were joking about it this morning, but like I used to be the badass or whatever, but like that wasn't true. I was just pretending because I thought that was like something that we do in our lives. But then I started carrying around cute mementos, or even this stuffed dog that I had named Waffles. And so when I started feeling anxiety, I started feeling like I'm losing control of that front, of that badass front, which I had to shed. That was what my anxiety was telling me, that this wasn't the life I should have been living. This wasn't the people I should have been around, and I was stifling my truth. So it reminds us. Let me see if I, yeah, and so that's another thing, being a crystal healer and really drawn to crystals. I always did that with, like, I remember I was in an HR office, and I was losing control of the conversation with HR, and I was seeing how no matter what I said to them, they were stuck in their mode of operation, and it was time for me to leave the job. But I was stuck in this meeting, and I had to get through the meeting to leave. So I literally, in front of everybody, in front of the HR department, I pulled out crystals, and I ignored them. I dropped out of the conversation. I got in my space, and I started feeling the crystal, feeling its spaces, feeling the how it's like little crooks and everything in it. And I was reciting to myself, how those things form, why it formed that way. The lepidolite, I was like, this is the lithium inside of it. Lepidolite is good for mood stability. Like, I brought my mind to something that's my passion. So now the anxiety just drops, it just falls away, it just sheds. So I find that super important. The chemotype is so good for that. I mean, especially the magneticness of it like that, just right there starts, because now your hands are involved. So if you're shaking, you're now calming your hands, you're calming your physical body, and you're coming down from that. So breath work totally works for this too, but I don't think personally I'm able to be in a mindset of thinking, okay, yeah, breath work, let's just breathe easy. I have to get my mind out of the situation and focus on my physical body and my tangible surroundings. And then I can think about breath work. And like, yeah, it does work. But it's so hard to sit there and be like, just breathe, like even someone telling you that, you're like, I am breathing. So it's easier when you bring yourself to this physical state, the tangible things around you, and trust the process. Trust the process. You see trees, they're blooming right now. We're blooming, like, trust that when a tree sheds its leaves, it comes back again. When you shed yourself, you're stressed out, and you're shedding all this with, like, let's say you're crying it out or whatever, and you feel like a barren tree now, just know you're ready for the next cycle. You get rid of it so you can grow your next thing, your next leaves, your next blossoms. So last time, I'm going to bring it back to that point. Ground yourself with your tangible things around you, the things that are secure, the things that are right now, because the future doesn't exist. It doesn't. It really doesn't. It's all what you do with inside of today. Your past no longer exists. Everything exists right now. So we have to focus on that, find our triggers. That's what we do after we calm the anxiety attack. We trace back to where that stems from, like me with the food shopping, and then we handle that during our healing, you know, like when we're home, when we're in our safe spaces, things like that. And don't be afraid to not go to that certain thing or not do that certain thing until you address it. You know, I did the mistake of not addressing it and just closing off for a while, and then I started to realize over the last summer, the more I was healing the past, so that now when I was getting into these situations in the summertime, I was feeling the anxiety for sure, but I was able to handle it because I understood it now. So now I understand why I'm getting it. And I did all the same things, did all the same grounding skills. I did them outside in public. I once meditated in the middle of a Wegmans before because I was like, this is too much. And I just sat down on a bench, and I just put my feet on the ground. I felt my weight. The bench is stable. I'm stable. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I'm okay. And then you move from there. Any other questions? I would love to talk to anybody. If you want to post in the comments, and I'll get back to you, and I'll be doing more videos like this for sure. And thank you for watching. Have a great day.